What's going on, everybody? Episode one, or sorry, I've been saying one for so long. I just couldn't get my head around the fact that this is episode 200 of the White Cat Outdoors podcast. For 200 episodes, every single week, without missing, we've been bringing you to the table while we talk about the outdoors. And for episode 200, we wanted to celebrate right with plenty of beer. We've got whiskey on the table, and we've got Alaskan guide, my Uncle Frank's dad, in studio talking about an awesome year up in Alaska. This marks 24 years of guiding for him up in Alaska, so it was really cool to, get that kind of experience on the podcast. We had an absolute blast recording this episode. It's one of the longest ones we've ever done, so we hope you guys enjoy it, and hopefully you don't get bored. We had a blast recording it, so hopefully you can crack a beer, drink some whiskey with us while you listen. It sounds like I'm rambling a little bit. What do you say? Let's get tuned in to this week's episode.
The cardinal sin. I pull up my bow and then I look dead at his antlers. I got out of the truck and when I slammed the door, I heard gobbles all around me.
Let's see it.
Alaska, moose, spot and sock. That is the bucket list. I agree.
White Cat Outdoors. White Cat Outdoors.
What's going on, everybody? Thanks for coming to another episode. This episode's been coming a little bit later
Yeah.
than we normally do it.
Yeah.
We usually do it right after my dad gets back, talk about Alaska, talk about his trip, see how everything went, what all they killed up there. But we've just been busy. People have been killing deer. We've been doing the deer camp series, and we just haven't had time. So
Well, last year we took a break in the deer camp series to do a alligator camp series.
yeah.
So I guess we're just going to do a quick recession and do a moose camp series.
Yeah, exactly. So you've heard me and Nick. Tom's sitting here with us too.
Always happy to be in the studio.
Yep, and as you guessed with Alaska, my father is sitting here with us.
Hello, everybody.
So yeah, we're is there anything we need to talk about before we dive right in?
No,
Any housekeeping?
no housekeeping. Floor's already swept.
All right.
I have a few things I'll bring up in the intro, but they'll hear that by the time we get here anyways.
Yeah.
So, Uncle Frank, how many years was this marking up in Alaska?
I think it's officially 24 years.
I was gonna say, I thought you were getting close to the quarter
Yeah,
century mark.
It's getting real close. Real close.
Have you missed a year?
No, I have not missed a year going up. I've done worked with different outfitters along the way, but I've always been up there hunting at least once every year.
So in the realm of cars, you're almost a classic in Alaska. So you're like,
I don't know how many people say that and back that up with you, referring to me as a classic. But
well, in Alaska as a guide, I mean, you got like,
yeah, I'm getting there.
I mean, is there many guides up there with 20 plus years of experience on the river?
I'm sure they're, well, not in our area so much, but I'm sure there's more up there than you realize. There's quite a few guys that have been up there quite a while. So.
I don't know if we ever covered this in a previous podcast, but I think it's important. How did you get started in guiding in Alaska?
Oh, I got lucky. I'll leave out a bunch of names, but it all started almost 30 years ago when a friend of mine went up on a spring brown bear hunt and never came back till the following fall. Kind of hit it off with his outfitter and stayed. So as he started to work for him for a couple of years, they'd come down here obviously in the wintertime like most of those outfitters do and do the shows. So I got introduced to the outfitter that he had hunted with. And then a neighbor of ours, way back when, him and two of his friends had booked a hunt up in Unit 19. And literally 3 weeks before the three of them were supposed to fly up there and do their moose brown bear hunt, their outfitter backed out on them.
Oh.
Yeah, so they had their tags bought, license purchased, airline tickets purchased.
And they are unit specific up there, correct?
Correct. Well, license and tags transfer. But
Between units?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, for the most part, unless it's a draw permit or something like that. But the general license and tags transfer around. So, but where you can get burnt is your seasons. So when you book your airline tickets to fly someplace, assuming you were going to hunt a certain season in your unit, it may not be the same seasons in another unit. So, but I happened to bump into the neighbor prior to them going up there, literally 3 weeks before they were supposed to go. And, knowing that he was headed that way, I asked him if he was excited about getting going because it was getting short time. And, man, you thought I kicked him in the guts. And he's like, no. And he told me the whole story about how the outfitter backed out on him. And now they spent all this money and nothing to do. Well, he explained to me when his dates were, and they were lined right up with this other outfitter I'd met.
You weren't guiding at the time.
No, I was.
You just knew the guy.
I just knew they were going. Just met the guy from shows, like I said, through a mutual high school friend.
Did you ever think at this point that you wanted to guide or you would be guiding?
No, I was like everybody else. You dream about going hunting and living in the woods and doing stuff like that, and your whole life. But 99% of us, it never comes to fruition for a host of different reasons. But so, anyways, I told the neighbor. I said, well, your dates line up, your tags are good, everything will transfer. You might have to eat your short plane ticket, but your plane ticket to Anchorage is still good. You're just going to fly to a different small town. If I can get a hold of this guy, would you be willing to switch outfits? And they're like, well, absolutely.
Yeah, they've committed at this point.
Right. So I made a phone call, and, we're going back to 1999, 2000, and everybody was already in camp. They were setting up camps for moose season that was coming up, here real quick. And so I made a phone call, which got transferred to Dillingham and left a message so that they could make a radio connection up to an interior village, who made another radio call to a village and another radio call to camp. And it daisy chained back and forth, but I got everybody in touch, and then I'm just kind of backed out and let them hash things out. Well, as luck would have it, the three of them were able to go, and they booked their hunt with them. And I got a phone call, and it was that outfitter saying, hey, thanks, I appreciate the 3 hunters, 3 combo guys. That's a big deal, for them.
You're doing like outside sales for him. Just
right.
You're like a bird dog for...
Right, yeah, but I wasn't getting a commission.
Yeah.
So, but he said, hey, but you created a problem. I'm shorthanded in camp now. I need a packer and someone to work in another camp and stuff like that. Would you be willing to come up for a few weeks?
If I have to.
I was like, well, yeah. What's that going to cost me to get up there, though? And he's like, don't worry about it. You get to the airport on this date, I'll have a ticket waiting for you. And sure enough, he did.
Were you self-employed
No,
at this point?
No, I was working for another contractor at the time. And fortunately, he enjoyed the outdoors and hunting as much as I did. So when I went and asked him for 3 weeks off in September, busy
Real
time
slow
for
season.
Yeah, for contractors. Winter's right around the corner. He looked at me and he goes, I'm surprised you're even asking. I figured you'd have just informed me that you were going.
Call you from the plane.
Right.
Yeah. Hey, I'm not going to be at work for a couple weeks.
So that's how I got to go up there. And then on the flight back, I knew I was being invited back the following year. And, at that point, the talk was already starting about working camps another year, get your assistant guide license, and, that this can become a long-term thing. So I'm on the plane flying back going,
I need to start my own
Something's
business.
got to change, because no one in their right mind is going to keep giving me all this time off to fly back and forth to Alaska. And
that's when the gears started turning.
So when I got back, I talked to the guy I was working for and told him the gig, and I continued to work for him until he found someone to replace me and stuff like that. But I broke off, went out on my own, and figured that was the only way I'd ever have enough.
Yeah, I mean,
ability to change my schedule around the way I needed.
No job I've ever had would allow a 3-week
tough to do.
Yeah, and even what you've worked into now, it's much more than 3 weeks. From setup to tear down in a moose and brown bear season, you're way above.
Yeah, I was
2 months.
I was a little over 7 weeks this fall. So, And that's, I mean, and I could literally go up there April 1st, stay until December 1st, and have something to do the whole time if I chose to. It might result in a divorce, but so that's how it happened.
So yeah, here you
so-
sit
'cause-
25 years later.
You were hooked at that, like after your first time, was it,
Oh,
regardless of the
yeah,
invite
yeah, 'cause-
back,
yeah,
were you
'cause-
like,
'cause-
this is going to be a long...
I knew that was something that I wanted to keep trying to figure. I was going to try to figure out how it was going to happen.
Gotcha.
And it was funny because on the plane flight up, like I said, all of us, grow up in the outdoors hunting and stuff, and you all sit and dream about, boy, it'd be so cool to live off grid and be in a tent for 3 months and Well, when you're on that plane for the very first time, and the reality kind of sets in,
It's not,
and
it
you're
would
going-
be cool. It's like,
and
I'm
you're
gonna...
talking to yourself, going, you always thought this would be cool.
I really
You're
hope it's that cool.
Find out if it's as cool as you always dreamed it would be. And fortunately for me, it was. I mean, my first year up there, I got into camp, and that classmate that I told you about that was the original connection, he and I ended up going on a 27, 28-mile hike because our pilot was late getting in to camp that year. So normally we would get flown up to one of our secondary camps. Well, because the pilot was late getting in, he was still at fish camp. He's a commercial fisherman in the summertime. We had to walk up there. So
Just a
it was-
quick 27-mile
so
jog
it was,
across the river.
yeah, so it was like,
Easy terrain, though.
and it actually really wasn't too bad. I mean,
Okay.
once we got out of the river bottom,
Okay.
so you got out onto the tundra and you started working the ridges. You had to dodge some soft spots and
That was your first time up there?
very first time.
So-
I was in camp 2 days and was on that walk. Neither myself or this other person, my classmate there, neither of us had been to this place before.
So you probably had a map.
We had a map and a description of what to look for, and
Like
Take
the
a
falling
right at
down
that
and
troll.
it was literally, you're going to walk this ridge, between this drainage and that drainage, and when the ridge on your, when the mountain on your right juts out and you get a real steep bluff that you see across the river, draw a line from that back to the nearest 2-point mountain on the left side that's like 8 miles away, and you will be directly between those points. There'll be a patch of alders on the hillside. That's where camp is stashed. Find that and get
Can't
camp.
miss it.
He's like, I'm telling you, it'll be there. Well, anybody who's ever walked the tundra and the hills in Alaska knows that there's like 4 million alder patches
Yeah.
that'll all hide.
But that one will stick
Okay,
out.
But that one will, well, the only thing that saved us was because he would periodically use that in the wintertime as a backup spot to camp when they were spring brown bear hunting. If they got out in some bad weather and were, that deep, they would break into that cache and set up, like an overnight spot if they had to. So to ensure that they could find it in the deep snow, they would run a stick up and put a flag on it up above the alders. So
Okay. So there was one
there,
distinct
there was
part.
one little distinct part. If you could see the 6-inch piece of white ribbon that was or orange
But
ribbon,
I mean,
whatever
you had
it was.
probably had to get within. You probably had 20 miles to go before you could even maybe see that.
Oh, you weren't going to see it until you were within a few hundred yards of it.
Okay, so
Yeah.
still
Oh, yeah.
okay. You had to be
You had
online
to,
with
you
26
pretty
miles.
much already had to be going. I hope that's the patch we got to find.
I've committed at this point. It
And-
better be.
Yeah, and we're actually it was the second patch alders we checked that it was
It's
in.
not too bad.
No, but I mean, if you looked at like the description that he gave us, I mean, it couldn't have been any better than it's between Walmart and
Yeah.
and
And
the
Sheetz.
and the Sheetz mini mart
Wow.
down there, and so
Maybe it was just a test to see if you were cut out for it.
well, they tested me again the following year too. So the following year, he put me in a boat and pointed to a spot on a map and said, "That's where I want camp." Well, I had to go 2 hours up the Nushagak River, find the mouth of the King Salmon River that I'd never been to before, and had another 2.5 hours up the King Salmon River to a spot where the river makes a left-hand turn.
Well, and the Nushagak's pretty straight.
Oh
so
yeah, right.
There's probably only 1 or 2 left-hand turns.
So it was in a boat with a full camp, and upriver I went for 4.5 hours. And but like I said again, the description he gave, there was no mistaking it. When I hit the right left-hand
Oh,
turn
that's
and
the left-hand turn
and
he was
looked at
talking.
the hill he was talking about and the description he gave, I mean, it was spot on. I mean, there was no doubt in my mind I'd found the right spot. So it was kind of neat, but a lot of fun.
Definitely learned a lot in those.
Yeah.
In
First
the
couple-
time between now and then.
Yeah, the first outfitter that I worked for there, and I will give you his name. It was Smokey Don Duncan.
I think you've brought Smokey up
Yeah.
before, so it would,
The amount of stuff that he has taught me is just unreplaceable. You know, I mean, he
Gotcha.
really did a lot for me and taught me a lot over the years.
So, fast forward 24 years with Smokey, you're now with a different outfitter.
Now with a different outfitter who I like a lot. Yeah, we've mentioned Alaska Elite
Yeah,
Outfitting over the
yes.
years.
And
So-
we've met a couple other of the guides.
Yep.
We've had Clayton on.
Yep.
Frankie's worked for him.
Yep.
I've met him a couple times down at the Harrisburg show.
Yeah, great guy. Couldn't be happier.
Yeah, he
Could not
seemed
be
like a great
happier.
guy.
Yep.
Welcomed me right into his booth for hours.
Right.
So
Yeah.
He's trying to welcome you up to Alaska too.
that's where the whole working for yourself is going to come into play, because my current employer has a rule of no more than 2 weeks in a row off. So
If you can't give 3, you might as well not come.
I wonder, maybe can I just take medical leave every September?
Isn't there like a family leave thing that the socialists
just
have come
get-
up with?
Kayla pregnant every year.
Yeah, she would love that if I just disappeared every time she got pregnant.
Yeah, a little paternity leave.
Yeah.
Little secret out. I did that. When both my kids were born, within 3 days, I was off on a hunt.
Nice.
Yeah, it's amazing I didn't get divorced for that.
Well, I was born November 9th, and my dad left.
That weekend.
Yeah, the next weekend to go up to New York for opening day of rifle. That went over real well.
Yeah.
This is just in the family.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one time I went to northern Quebec, and the other time I went to northern Ontario. Yeah, it's still like 30 years later, a sore subject.
Gets brought up.
It'll get brought up every
Remember that time 27 years ago?
Oops.
Um,
But anyways,
yeah.
so this year, wow, rough year.
okay.
I was on the fortunate end of this year.
Okay.
Things, I don't know if did we talk much about the spring hunt?
No.
No, I think
We didn't talk at all about the spring hunt.
That's
No.
because it was such a disaster.
Spring's
But-
black bear, right?
Well, no, Mike does a spring brown bear.
Oh, he
hunt.
does. Okay.
So our spring brown bear hunt is, we do 2 hunts, 2 10-day hunts. So it's like May 10th, May 20th, and then 20th to the 30th for the most part. Nushagak River usually goes out somewhere around April 20th to the 25th.
You mean ice?
Ice out.
Yes.
Yeah, ice goes out. So cleans up so you can get a boat on the river and go start setting up camps and doing everything we do for spring brown bear hunt. This year, the river never let out until May 16th, I think it was. We're already over halfway through what was supposed to be the first hunt. Those guys are all sitting in Anchorage waiting to come in, and there's nothing to do. I mean, the river's nothing but ice. So,
Just take them on one of them 28-mile walks.
yeah, well, there's still plenty of snow up on
Yeah.
it's all like that real wet, thick, slushy snow
Yeah.
that you
Real
walking
easy to
up-
walk through.
Yeah, that you're up to your hips in slush, and so. So the spring hunt got really rough. When the ice finally went out, we had nothing but nonstop rain. The river was out of its banks, and so we only, thank God, we only had like 3 hunters, and we actually sent some of the guys home, gave them the option: you can do what you want to do, or come back another year, because this just wasn't panning out. And I was fortunate enough to be one of the few people to see a bear, and it was a good bear. And unfortunately, my client
good bear, bad shot.
never even took the shot.
Oh, okay.
And we had this bear at 65 yards. He was just convinced it was going to offer more opportunities than would. I don't know.
It's 65 yards.
Yeah, and I later learned. I had a packer with me when the bear came in. We were sitting on a moose carcass. It was a winter kill.
Mm-hmm.
So he was kind of thinking it was just going to come stand on the winter kill 45, 50 yards from us and just stand there and
He'd have all.
shoot me here kind of thing, you know. And as it was, we saw the bear come from 200 yards away. It slowly worked its way into us to about 55, 60 yards. at
Where
its
do you
closest.
like them with a rifle? Like, or when will you start telling a client?
I usually I want to see shots under 200, and obviously the closer the better.
Gotcha.
So this bear showed up. He first stepped out. We saw him at about 190 yards. So in my mind, he's in range.
Okay.
Now, all that said, if he's coming to us, I'd much rather see you take a 100-yard shot than a 190-yard shot.
Agreed.
So, but we knew right away it was a good bear. It was going to be 9+. And for our area, that's a very good bear. And so he knew he was supposed to be shooting this bear, and he spent a lot of time fumbling with his scope and his gloves and his tripod and everything else. And I could make this story last an hour. But the long story short is he never pulled the trigger and got a bullet out of the gun. So I later found out he did try to pull the trigger. So the packer who was behind us filming all this.
Oh.
Right. So we got proof.
He had a different perspective.
He had a different. I'm focused more on the bear once I give him the go ahead.
Yeah. You want to see where he hits, where the bear
so
goes.
the client did pull the trigger, but his bolt was up. So he about yanked his gun off the tripod. Like I said,
You thought he's just adjusting a little bit, but that was a little.
I mean, when I saw something move, I just kind of. Then I saw him monkeying around. I thought he was just still playing with
Getting
stuff.
ready.
But the finger was in the scope because it had been raining, and like I said, there was 100 things that went wrong, and in the end, we have, I think, 4 minutes of video on a brown bear in a field. And never more than 190 yards. And the last time he was standing upright, looking at the 3 monkeys hiding behind a spruce tree. At this point, was the way I described ourselves, because we're moving around a lot trying to reposition to shoot this thing, and it just never happened. So
You did everything you could on your end.
yeah, I mean, and the client knew it. I mean, he was very apologetic, and he gave his version of what he thought was going to happen and everything else. So whatever, it's over and done. He ended up not getting the bear, but like I said, we at least had a chance at a nice bear. So, but now we get on to summer stayed cold and rainy up there. We get on to bear season for the fall, and I had a client, really nice guy from the Boston, Massachusetts area. And he was a riot. I mean, I really enjoyed having him.
Did he have the Boston accent?
Yeah, a little bit. Not terrible, but he did have it, and I'm good. But for the most part, he kept it kind of low. But when we really start laughing and joking around a little bit, it would come out more and more and more. So, but we had a ball. The weather was terrible for us. We were first set up to do some hunting right on the river, try to work some of the fishing holes and see if we couldn't catch a bear coming down and catching some fish. And I went to a spot I'd never been before. We went up a new river, kind of like looking for a new campsite to start doing some stuff. And we had a lot of bear sign, a lot of activity. But we had a lot of rafters that were coming down, floating and fishing. I mean, and there literally wasn't a day that we didn't see.
Man, you
4,
think
5,
you go that
6
far out of
rafters.
civilization, you'd be away from
well,
that.
they get flown in, dropped off on a pond, and they do a week-long rafting trip. It's quite common up there. So, after a few days of that, we were like, maybe these rafters have just got. They make a lot of noise because they're up there to fish.
They're not there trying to be quiet.
No, they're just having fun. They're not doing anything that.
Yeah, they're not doing anything wrong. It's
It's just not helping
inconvenient.
us. Right. So nothing against them, but it wasn't helping us. So we decided we were going to bug out of that camp, and we went on a 75-mile boat trip to another spot that I have camped and hunted before. We were going to spend some time up in the hills, blasting berry bushes and stuff like that. So to make that move, you're pretty much surrendering a day of hunting,
Now, is that something you need to discuss with your client? And
yeah. I mean, I go over it, and I mean, the clients are always ready for anything different. If they think it's going to improve their chances,
and if you're suggesting it usually
right.
is probably
Correct.
something you believe
Right.
is going to improve.
Absolutely. So we make this big move. We get up the next morning, and instead of hunting where we're at, we make this big move, head upriver, and lo and behold, the weather really socks in for like the next 3 days, and the fog and the clouds are right down to the river bottom. You know, you get out, visibility is 100 yards, and glassing and spotting and stalking bears has just been thrown right out of the window.
Yeah, if you can only see 100 yards, you really don't need glass.
No, and I mean, and you're just the whole concept of sitting at a glassing point, spotting a bear that's 2 miles away, and putting a stalk on him is just gone.
When you're up there, do you have any way to forecast the weather? Like, do you know what's coming, or is it just wake up and see what it's going to do?
No, what we can do now is with the GPSs, you can get a weather forecast, and it's about 50-50. I mean, sometimes it's accurate, sometimes it's not.
No, is it like our weather systems here where it's coming from the airport?
I think everything's coming out of Anchorage, but
I guess
don't know for certain.
Yeah, where you're at, you're a couple hundred miles from Anchorage.
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, we're about 300 miles from Anchorage, and but with the different ocean currents, and you got mountain ranges and stuff like that. I mean,
well, we get all of our weather from Cleveland, and what the weather says from Cleveland is completely different than what happens here all the time.
That's only
and
100 miles away.
100 miles. So
Yeah.
put mountains and oceans and 300 miles,
Yeah.
you're getting a lot of different stuff going on.
So, but like I said, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not. But in the end, your best weather report is to get up in the morning and stick your head out of the tent.
Yeah.
White water in the morning.
So we wasted 3 days up there doing that, and it turned out to be pretty much a waste. It just didn't pan out. Kudos to my client. James was more than understanding and patient, and he kept a good attitude the whole time, and we made the best of it. So then we turned around, went back to the other camp, knew we could at least, regardless of the weather, we could watch some fishing holes and maybe catch something, doing something. And so we get back up to camp, the original camp. And when we pulled in, I had noticed a slight disturbance had been made on the bank. Now, we had some gas stored in 15-gallon drums there. And they're always stored upright in a manner that they can't, if something happens, that they don't end up in the river, they don't pollute everything. And, well, one of the barrels was knocked over.
Take a pretty stiff breeze to
Knocked over a 15-gallon gas can that was leaning up against other 15-gallon gas cans.
Yeah.
And I looked at James, I said, we've got a bear in camp. And he goes, right now? I says, well, probably not right now. We just pulled up here.
But
in
he's
the
for
boat,
sure been here.
But there's been one here. He's like, well, how do you know? I said, well, that gas can's knocked over. And he said the same thing. He goes, well, maybe the wind blew it over. And I said, I promise you it didn't. Now, the next thing I noticed that was really odd, because I've never seen this before, the can had not been eaten.
That
He
is
didn't chew.
right,
He
yeah.
did not chew it up. Did not crush it. Didn't have gas strewn all over the place. Usually, when bears find a gas can,
They bite.
they
just like huffing
chew
gas
it
or
up.
what?
I think so. They chew it up, spread
Bunch
it
of
out.
gas
All that
suffers.
smell, they just destroy
They
it.
make a mess.
catch a
So-
quick buzz and
Yeah,
On to the next campsite.
yeah. So I'm like, well, just be careful. Let's walk up to camp and
Make sure he's not in your
see.
sleeping bag.
Maybe he just came down, because a lot of times when bears will come down, they'll walk through camp, they'll monkey with the gas can and move right on through.
Why the gas can? Is it just the scent?
I have no idea.
Like,
Honest
why-
to God, if I
you've
were,
got food and
if
everything
I was
there.
allowed to bait brown bears, I would put a 15-gallon gas can out. 'Cause I'm telling you, they can't resist it.
So you've got food in camp and everything, and they'll attack the
They'll
gas
attack
can
the
and
gas
move
can.
on.
Yep.
That's
I
wild.
have literally watched bears come into camp, look at the food cache tent with an open door, stand there in that door staring in at all those goodies, and you can just see the gears turning. And they're going, look at all that free grub. But I ain't going in that tent again. That's just too dangerous to go
There's
in there.
a free high right
There's
over there in that
gotta
gas
be
can.
a gas can someplace.
That's funny.
You know, hang a piece of moose meat in a tree and they'll tear that down every time. But them brownies just don't seem to want to go into that tent, you know. Now, if you hadn't been around for a couple of weeks, it'd probably change your mind. But when that human scents fresh, they're not as willing to take.
They got a
chance.
pretty good nose on them, don't they?
Oh yeah, you ain't getting nothing past their nose. So we start walking up to camp, and the way the path kind of went, the first thing I could see was the back of the cook tent that now had a double wide door in it.
It didn't before.
It did not before. It used to have a window with a screen, and now it's got a double wide door that you could carry your new bride through. Without
So,
her
This
bumping her
wasn't a
feet or-
bear-proof tent.
No, not a bear-proof tent. And oddly enough, to everybody who, when they get in a tent, does not want to sleep by the door, this was the back of the tent.
So
Came right through the side.
So at this point, are you? Obviously, you're not sure if the bear's here or not. Are guns drawn or anything? Like, are
No,
you?
I've got my pistol.
Like, you
handy.
still-
It's in its holster, but
it's
it's
still
loose.
holstered, okay.
It's loose. I got the
straps
locked
on.
off. Yeah, I mean it's ready to come out. But like I
Okay.
said, we just pulled up in the boat. We're talking. We're making noise. I'm confident that the bear's not standing right here, but knowing that it's still a possibility. So the closer we get, I can see that he has taken everything that was in that tent, pulled it out through that double door, and has it dragged down through the woods. The cook stove, the propane tank, all the cooking utensils, food.
So he had some time there.
Oh, he'd been there for hours.
He showed up the moment you guys left.
So I can't believe they just
And-
left all this here for me.
Right, and oddly enough, I'm looking at boy, a lot of it hasn't even been eaten yet, you know. And we'd had a lot of rain, and so like things like napkins and paper towels and stuff like that were wet, but not
Falling apart.
not falling apart. So I really think that he had gotten there that morning, and now here it is noontime.
He might be
And,
on his way back.
So I don't really think he'd been there he'd been there for a while, but he'd just gotten there that day. And we walk over to the other tent, the one we'd been sleeping in. And could have been James, could have been myself, one of us. We didn't zip that tent down all the way when we left.
Mm-hmm.
It was like 2/3 of the way down. Oddly enough, the bear went through that front door.
Oh yeah.
And you could see where he started to like bite at it, but when it opened up,
He's
He
like,
just
oh, I'll
walked
just
through- I'll
he's
just use
like,
the door.
"Oh, I'll just use the door. And then he went. And he flipped the cots over that had sleeping bags on them and kind of
looking for a Cliff Bar or bag M&Ms.
whatever he was looking for, but damaged nothing.
So if you don't want your stuff ruined, just leave the door open.
Leave
and
the
they'll
door
be polite
open.
about
right.
it.
I mean, just leave the thing hanging open. They'll use it.
Yeah,
The
tell
only-
that to a client
the
before you go to
only-
bed.
right.
Like, we're just going to leave
The
this door open.
He'll just walk in right there.
He won't touch nothing. You'll be
So
fine.
the only thing he bothered in that tent was I had a bottle of Listerine that got left behind that was on the wood stove. He bit into that and
Doing
clearly
shots.
he didn't like Listerine, but so it had spilled and soaked into one of the sleeping bags that he had thrown on the floor, you know. And that was it. I was like nosed around, flipped stuff up, walked out, no problem.
Didn't destroy the tent.
Went back to making a mess of the other one. So, satisfied that the bear's not around, start rooting down through the woods, find some garbage bags that he drug all over the place, and start cleaning up the mess. You know, we got 3 hours of cleaning up here to do now, and try to put camp back together, see what's destroyed, what's not.
Now, do you keep any sort of like tent repair kit, whether it's just twine and some?
Oh, I've got a needle and thread, but
I didn't know if like just even a tarp to just.
we've always got tarps.
Okay.
all over
there's
stuff.
tarps
I just
everywhere.
something
Yeah.
like
We
it's,
got tarps
it's not. I
everywhere.
guarantee that's not the first time you've had a bear come in camp.
No,
No,
it's not.
it happens
But,
pretty much every year.
But and I continued to use that tent the rest of the season. We just had 2 doors now.
Like we had a
convenient.
lovely bear came over and
Right.
installed this other door
Installed
for
this
us.
other door for us.
Now you don't have to walk all the way around if you come from this side.
So we're cleaning up, and I'm talking to James. I'm like, well, at least we know we can kill a bear here tonight. And he's like, what do you mean? I says, well, we're going to make sure that there's nothing in the way here, like that propane tank. And when he comes back tonight to finish with the mess he's made, we're going to come out of the tent, and we're going to shoot him right here in camp. And he gets this blank look on his face. And I'm like, what's the matter? He goes, we're going to sleep here?
Thought you guys were going back to a hotel.
I'm like, well, well, yeah, didn't you come up to shoot a bear? He goes, yeah, out there, not in my tent. And I'm like, well, he's going to come back. It's a great
She said,
opportunity
well, then we'll
to
move
shoot
your
him.
tent over there and we'll hunt him here.
And he's like, I don't know. He goes, I don't know if I like the idea of
Hunting from my sleeping bag.
sleeping here and waiting for this thing to come back. He goes, I'd feel better if we were shooting. And I'm like, all right, well, fine. Then we'll get you out of here and we'll come up with a better plan. So I said,
It's actually a pretty good plan because if you shoot him, then he's not going
no
to come back
packing.
into camp.
Right. So we start cleaning everything up. And I said, well, we'll just get stuff cleaned up, load some stuff up in the boat. And you get stuff that's garbage. We'll head back down. And we had a fish lodge we were using. I said, we'll spend the night down there and kind of regroup and figure out what we're going to do. And because obviously this camp's going to take a little while to put back together if we're going to just stay here.
Yeah. Are the clients usually pretty uneasy after a bear comes into camp? Like, do they feel almost like
Yes.
violated to where they're like, I know that he could do this anytime, but now since he's done it,
It's
now
all-
I don't.
Right. Reality sets in.
Yeah, so they're like,
And I get it. They,
especially
I've been
being a
up there.
first time up there.
Correct. I've made literally 50 trips up there, and I mean, I've had a lot of bear encounters from as harmless as could be to pushing the limits of, wow, that was just
That was
not right. So I get it when they're not comfortable. And if you're not, I'm not going to make you stay there and deal with that
So
situation.
your part of your job is to make sure they have an enjoyable time up there.
Correct. So we're cleaning up, making plans that we're going to, go back to the fish lodge and we're going to stay there. And the next thing I know, I hear, the bear's back, the bear's back. I'm looking around, I'm like,
I haven't heard a gun go off.
right. I'm like, well, where is it? He goes, it's in the boat. He climbed into the boat.
Firing it up.
While you guys were cleaning up.
While we were cleaning up, he came back and climbed in the boat, which now this really is odd to me, And, he's yelling, the bear's back, the bear's back. I'm like, well, shoot the damn thing, So the gun goes off. Bear's down there by the boat. I get over there and it's laying there and it come out of the boat with a Costco tote in its mouth. And now it's piled up right there. I mean,
He dropped the bear right there.
Right. the bow of the boat.
right there.
That's
I
awesome.
mean, tote still off his nose, his feet just out of the boat. I mean, there it is.
Picture perfect.
That's crazy.
And I get down there and it's a black bear.
Oh, really?
And perfectly legal.
Okay.
Perfectly legal. The bear tag is, he's got a brown
But
bear tag. He
there's
can put that
never
on.
black bears around.
Never black bear. I shouldn't say never. We have killed, but they are such an oddity. And when he was yelling, the bear's back, he at one point said, I told you it was a black bear. And I'm like, well, I'm hearing the bear's back. I didn't.
Yeah,
my
Black
brain-
back.
Right.
Yeah.
So it didn't, but when I walked up and saw this black bear, I'm like, it all made sense to me. That's why, the gas can wasn't destroyed. He wasn't
didn't
as
totally
interested into
destroy
it.
it. Yeah.
He was here in the daylight doing this and that. Yeah, everything kind of came back together.
Typical black bear things,
Right,
not
typical-
brown bear things.
Right, exactly. So we ended up with a black bear.
So was your client happy with the black bear?
Well, no, not really. It wasn't what he came up there for, But the hunt was. We only had a couple days left, and it was kind of like, well, we solved a problem.
Yeah.
You
Got
did
a
get
little
some-
excitement.
Right, you did get something. So, we kind of cleaned up and went back down to the fish camp for the last couple days. Did some fishing and had a little bit of fun, and he went home happy. Obviously disappointed that
Didn't
the
get
brown
a
bear hunting didn't pan out, but.
You still did get a
You
bear.
still got a
Well,
heck of a story to tell.
Right. He ended up with. In a lot of ways, he ended up with better stories than a lot of guys that have come up there and shot brown bears. So it was a pretty good deal, really, in the end.
It's neat though that his first time in Alaska like that sort of high stress situation, like you said, typically people, they got their tripod, they're just getting ready,
Right.
make the perfect. This guy's watching a bear. He's already on edge because he just totally ripped your camp apart.
Right.
And now it's like
He walks out to the boat to
and
get
the
his
bear's
jacket.
there,
And
and
the
he
bear's there in the boat,
and
going
he-
through it like a Christmas
probably
time.
freehands this thing and just drops it right there. That's impressive on his end to
I was
just
happy the motor didn't get shot.
yeah.
So, but yeah. So, anyways, good deal, a lot of fun.
That was the early bear hunt.
Yeah. And then, so now we got moose season coming up. And we had actually been seeing, a regular occasions, cows in the river,
That's a good sign at this time of year.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You always like seeing them cows walking back and forth. And, like I said, being in a new spot that had never hunted before, it was very, very encouraging. So we get going moose season. And
do you have any guys from the early season? Were they still there for moose, like combo hunters, or did you have a full fresh?
No, we got a whole fresh new batch of guys that came in for moose and moose season. So I had to pull out. I ran back down to Ekwok for a few days. Had to help get some people in and shipped off to different camps, this, that, and the other thing. And Clayton, who you guys have met, and Sean, they came in and they went back up and finished. They put up another tent in that camp, so we had an extra tent for moose hunters, and just kind of tidied up a little bit, so we were ready to go. And when I came back up with clients, they were telling me that they had two good bulls upriver, just a quarter of a mile that they were seen the day before, and they had gone up on the hill to do some glassing, and they'd seen a couple bulls out in the tundra. Not accessible bulls that we could hunt, but they were bulls we could call to and try to get to come our way and stuff like that. So we had pretty high hopes for moose season, and so we got going, got started, and like I said, we'd picked out a few key points on the, with our maps and our Onyx hunt, stuff like that we really wanted to spend some time at, because we thought they'd be quality places for moose corridor travels and stuff like that. And about 3 days in, Clayton was upriver and called in a bull that came in but was silent the whole time until they were getting ready to leave. They were actually climbing into the boat to leave, and they were going to come back down to camp, and actually a little bit early, but the river had been a little low at that point, and Clayton knocked a hole in the bottom of the boat. Not terrible, but it had to be fixed. He couldn't keep hunting out of it. So they were getting ready to come back. Well, as they were getting in the boat, the moose grunted a couple times and popped out and was like right there, and it was like 180 or 200 yards away, but they got eyes on it, and it was a really nice bull, and they kind of got whirled around kind of quick, and client shot and hit the bull the first time, missed it with the second shot, and the bull kind of got into the brush on him, and things happened kind of fast and just didn't pan out very well. We never did find that animal. Clayton was able to follow the track for about 1.5 miles literally, and it got out onto the tundra, and there'd been a fire up there the year before. So once you left that river corridor, it was burnt tundra. But those moose were using that burnt tundra. Mm-hmm. And so you could follow it real easy. And it bled for a little while and dried up, and could still follow that fresh track through that burn pretty good. And it never laid down, never stopped moving, and just eventually got it back down into the bottom of the river where it got thick and nasty, and they lost it.
Now, how does your camp work? If you draw blood on an animal, is that your tag?
That's your tag.
Okay.
The resource is just too scarce and valuable.
Yeah, I kind of I think I knew the answer to that, but I figured just to vocalize it for anybody listening.
Yeah. If we know you hit it, we can see blood. I'm sorry, we'll keep looking for it as long as we can for you, but that's your animal.
Now, how hardy is a moose? Like, I know, like, our experience whitetail hunting with a rifle, you can put it right on the front shoulder, and whatever rifle you're using is going to blow right through that front shoulder. Is it the same with a moose, or do you have to hit?
No, you need to match your bullet to that animal, because there's a lot of bone, a lot of muscle, and a lot of hide.
So if you go up there with your 150 grain 270 whitetail round,
not a good idea.
It's not gonna punch through the front shoulder of a moose.
No, I always like telling people, and I don't care if you're shooting bears or moose or whatever, treat it like you're shooting your bow. If you slide behind that shoulder through the lungs, we're gonna get that animal.
Oh,
when
absolutely.
you take out both of his lungs, we are gonna get him. After that, marginal shots have marginal recoveries.
Yep.
So, And like I said, you'll find guys will argue over shot placement, and you'll talk to the guys that say hit them on the shoulder and break them down, and yada yada yada. And
whether you break them down or not,
it works for you, great. But I'm telling you, it's been my experience. If you take his lungs out,
there's not an animal.
We will get that animal.
You take both lungs out, there's not an animal that can survive on this planet.
Correct.
So
and you're usually going to find them within 50 to 100 yards at worst case scenario.
Yeah.
So
especially with the energy behind a rifle. Sometimes, I don't know about a moose, but I know a whitetail. A lot of times, you put it behind the shoulder. A lot of times, they fold up right there anyway.
Yep. Yeah. So you're not going to fold a moose up unless you hit him in the spine. But
have you seen other than like a spine shot? Like, have you ever seen somebody a moose just folds?
The only ones I've seen fold is one of my clients one year shot one right between the eyes at about 70 yards.
On purpose?
On purpose. It was staring at us, and I'm like, wait for him to turn. All of a sudden, the gun went off, and the moose disappeared. I'm like,
What
the hell was that? And he's like, I shot him. And I'm like, where'd you hit him? He goes, right between the eyes. And we went down there, and he did. He couldn't have been any more centered up between his eyeballs, and that thing was folded up, dead as could be right there. I mean, it disappeared quick. So, but I don't recommend that shot either. No.
Yeah, you can't aim for the client either.
Again, just because something works doesn't mean it was right.
Yeah.
But like I said, I like broadside shots. I like double lung shots.
Big fan.
I'm a big believer in matching your bullet to the animal. You can bring a 30-06 up there, and if you've got the right charge behind it, the right bullet coming out of that cartridge, it's a very deadly round. Well-placed bullets much better than a big bullet in the ass.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When people start talking about how big a gun do I need, my response is always the same. I want you to bring the biggest gun you can shoot straight. I don't.
You can go up there with a 45-70 but if you can't hold the thing straight or
the 416 Rigby does us no good if you're going to hit it in the ass.
Yeah.
Because I've watched guys kill brown bears with 30-06s. And
they do it with bows too.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. But you take their lungs out, and we'll get them. So, like I said, you can find people that'll argue those parameters all day long, and more power to you. I'm not going to waste my time arguing with you, but
yeah, you've got real world experience that shows what works and what doesn't.
This is what I believe in, and it's worked for me. So anyway, Clayton has this wounded moose that he did look for it for 2 days, never had any luck. I was with one of the other clients downriver. I had a moose answer a couple times. Wasn't really fired up. But I told Clayton about it. I said, we were on this side of the river calling, and I could hear him on the other side. It's a nice little pitch point, and there's really only about 250 yards of cover, and then you're out to the burn. So it was a real doable, quiet, sneak kind of hunt. And I said, go down there and see what you can find. Hear somebody different, and see what happens. Well, he went in there and he got the moose to grunt a couple times and respond, but didn't want to really fire up real much. But it was a nice enough area they could kind of poke their way through, and lo and behold, they got eyes on him and shot one. Got one of them, a 57-inch bull.
Very nice.
Real nice animal. And the bull that was with it, was actually just a little bit better, not much, but a little bit better bull. Had Clayton have had two guides with tags, they could have shot
double
both.
down
they
on
would have
moose
doubled
in
them up. They
Alaska.
could have
That's
doubled
insane.
them up.
Could you imagine doubling up on moose?
Yeah.
It's
cool enough for turkey.
Yeah, that's 2 days worth of work right there.
Yeah, so but good deal. They got a moose.
I was going to say, you were talking about you couldn't really tell he was fired up. But for our local listeners, is there a comparison to calling moose and calling turkeys? A lot of times, you call to a turkey and you're not even finished with your sequence and he's double, triple gobbling back.
Right, and sometimes he gives you that once in a while gobble.
Yeah,
that
you
says,
could call 3
I hear
times.
you, and I ain't paying much attention.
So is it similar to moose?
Very similar. Very similar. Sometimes you'll make a call and the next 10 things you hear are him coming, and he's on it he's on a fishing line, and you're just reeling him in, and you can't stop him. And then the next time you'll get a whoa.
Yeah, just letting you know, hey, I'm over here if you want to come see me.
Half hour later, more. and that's it.
And-
So
they're not like elk that bugle, obviously, but you've talked about it in the past, and I don't know if everybody could have some new listeners and stuff, but it is eerily quiet up in
Very.
Alaska. So
Very.
how they're just doing that, like that grunt, like you said, that just how far can you hear that away?
surprisingly far. I mean,
That's
Several
hundreds of-
hundred yards.
That's
Yeah,
what I was
hundreds
getting
of
at. Is
yards.
it's
Yeah.
eerily quiet up there to where you
It's
you
literally
can
like
think-
a cough. It's
you
Yeah.
could think, in Pennsylvania, I'm hundreds of yards off the road and stuff. It's quiet out here. You're still getting polluted noise from traffic
Yeah.
and everything. Even though you can't hear it, it's polluting the sound.
Yes.
And up there, you said it's just different.
None of that. It is. It's
Almost can
and
hear your blood
sometimes
flow.
that eerily quiet will drive you nuts because you swear you're doing everything right and you're hearing nothing. And it's like, I know moose can hear me.
Yeah.
Why won't they just?
yeah.
give me
Any moose within 700 yards is going to hear
can
you.
hear
I
me.
know there's at least one.
Right, and they just won't talk. They're just until they're ready. You can do any kind of dance you want, sound you want. Until they're ready, that ain't gonna happen. So, but like I said, it worked out really good. Clayton's a pretty good hunter. That moose gave his position away, and he was in a spot where he could move quietly.
Just kind of stalked it,
and
really.
it took them a while. I mean, it wasn't like they just walked over and found him. I mean, they spent a couple hours trying to
Doing a blind stalk.
close a few hundred yards of distance until they got to lay eyes on him.
How spooky are moose?
They aren't flighty like a whitetail, but once they know you're there, they're not going to stick around. They're leaving. But we're like a whitetail. When he busts you, he'll come out of his skin turned inside out and
Yeah.
gone at 1,000 miles an hour. And
Yeah, it
moose
could be
is-
two
Moose
blocks.
will
Moose
just
is
walk
going to
away.
kind of look at you and be like, "Yeah, this ain't right," and he's just going to
Walk away.
turn and go. Yeah, walk away. So
Do they have a nose like a whitetail? Like, do you have to
Oh,
play
they got
the
a
wind?
great. They got a great nose. You got to play the wind. They got a great nose, and those paddles are just like beacons for drawing in sound. You can't stress enough how important quiet is.
So you said
And-
you tell everybody to get their candy out of the wrappers if they're going to carry candy bars and
Jesus.
stuff.
It amazes me. We just fed you breakfast an hour ago.
And it's as
And
soon as the
first
bull's like
thing you
in
do
range,
when
you're
we
like,
get out of the boat is the candy wrappers are going and they're eating crackers. It's like, I'm the fattest guy in camp, and I can go 4 hours without eating.
That's I've said it before on here, and I'm not a small guy either,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm the kind of person that I'm gonna eat it if I have it,
Yeah.
so I just don't bring
Don't
it
take it.
because I'm perfectly fine doing an all day sit with a bottle of water,
I don't even take a bottle of water with me.
but I'm saying I'm fine with that. But if I pack 2 sandwiches, 2 granola bars, an apple,
Mm-hmm.
all of it's gonna be gone by 9 a.m. But I can do either. I'm fine either way. But
Right.
whatever gets packed is getting eaten before lunch.
Absolutely, I'm
So-
with you 100%.
So it's like it's for me. It would just be best if I was in Alaska. Don't bring the candy bars because I won't miss them. But if
Right.
they're there, I'm gonna be.
You're going to be screwing up your hunt with them.
No, I don't ever bring anything with loud wrappers. I'm usually.
Well, it was funny. The one of the guys that was there hunting with us, he had like a set of earbud type things that were
Like those amplifiers.
amplifiers, that he was wearing. And one of my biggest complaints, and sorry, Kuyu and Sitka, but I hate your rain gear. It makes way too much flipping noise. They got great products, I get it, but it's just too loud.
It's tough for good rain gear to
not
be quiet
right.
though.
And quite often, I don't care how hard it's raining. If I get something going, I dump my rain gear.
Yeah,
You'd rather be wet and kill a moose than
Dry and
ruin it.
and ruin it. Correct. So,
I can totally agree with that because
Yeah.
even the best rain gear in the world is a rubberized suit,
Yeah.
and it's loud as
and
hell.
it's loud as hell.
I think you get a good set of wool bibs and a wool coat. It absorbs a lot of water
Yeah.
before you start getting wet.
Well, that's why I
And you'll
switched.
still be warm.
That's why I switched to wool, is because wool will hold 80% of its heat when
Wet.
it's wet,
Yeah.
where cotton holds like
Nothing.
10. So it's so I would rather be wet and warm than wet and cold or
Like,
loud.
it takes a lot to work through that wool to get down.
Oh
to
yeah.
Yeah.
It's gonna be heavy as hell though.
Yeah.
I will say that a wet wool bibs are
They get heavy.
yeah.
Yeah.
But
so-
at least you'll
so
kill
this-
something.
Yeah. So the one client who had these earbuds in, at one point we were hunting and we had a moose going, And I kept trying to stress to everybody to be quiet. Well, he's listening to us walk with those earbuds, and it's kind of rainy out. And he's like, I couldn't believe how loud that rain gear was with them earbuds. And I'm like, all right, here's what I want you to understand right now. What you heard with those earbuds in your ears on that rain gear is the same thing that moose was hearing at 400 yards with them big amplifiers on his head.
Yeah.
That's why I'm so adamant about
Shut up.
Yeah.
because he can hear it, you know. And that's why I said a lot of times when things start to heat up a little bit, I don't care how hard it's raining, I dump my rain gear.
Yeah.
And if it's raining that hard, there's no rain gear that's going to keep you dry.
You either sweat yourself wet on the inside or it soaks
Yeah.
through whatever you're wearing.
It's amazing what those animals can hear. Because I've had deer just clipping my release to my bow, just that little
thing.
and then all of a sudden that doe is, I mean, they're staring at your eyeballs.
Yep.
Like it's not even like that direction.
Yeah, they're
It's,
not like, what was that? They're like, I know exactly what
they're
that
looking
was.
right at that fat guy in that tree. Like right there, you're done. Like how? So like like you said, there's no way that they're not hearing that.
No, yeah, they do. So, but like I said, everything worked out real good for Clayton that day there, and we were about 6 days in now.
On a 14-day hunt, correct?
It's 11 days of moose hunting.
11 days of moose
Yes.
hunting.
So
Okay.
we got a couple days left over then for bear season. So we all went in, and the 3 hunters we had were part of a group. So everybody was happy about participating.
Somebody in the group killed a bear.
Yeah, we killed a moose.
moose.
We're all going to go. We're going to take pictures. We're going to pack the thing out. And
We're eating moose steaks tonight.
yeah, so, and I don't know, I mean, well, you guys know, last Christmas I gave myself a Christmas present, was a new complete knee replacement.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, we didn't bring that up on here.
Yeah, so I'm 8 months into my new knee replacement, and
People are still trying to keep up with you in Alaska.
and I got the pleasures of packing out the 2 hinds for
Well,
The
it was
heaviest
kind of,
pieces.
wasn't it?
half
It was
a
a
mile
little
round trip.
It was a little bit of last moose season that kind of drove you to getting this new knee.
When we got done last year with moose and bear season, I came out at the end of September, and I went through the whole season, not a stitch of a problem. And we cleaned up camp, and we were literally putting away gear in town when my knee started to tighten up. And it was a knee I injured back in college, and I always knew this day was coming.
I've heard knee injuries will come back.
Yeah, and but it when it locked down on me, it locked down, and I couldn't straighten it out anymore. And
Yeah, you were walking when you got home, and then it was like 3 days later you were on crutches,
crutches.
couldn't move.
We were podcasting at your house still, and I remember sitting
Yeah.
like, holy smokes.
Yep.
Like,
so, but so I got to test it out pretty good. 8 months after a total knee replacement, I was packing hinds out, and we were climbing mountains, chasing bears, like I said, the whole time. And
any pain or anything, or just a
no,
little?
I was happy. I was happy as a lark, man. I'm in Alaska.
So
Bear
have you
hunting,
noticed?
moose hunting.
Have you noticed any difference? Because I know, your legs, they're not the same length, but when you redo them,
I've told my doctor this, and he told me I'm nuts, but I would bet $1,000 that leg's a half inch longer than the other one now, longer than whatever the difference
What it
was
was.
before.
Mm-hmm.
And because it just, and I know it's going to take a while. Like I said, it still hasn't been a year yet.
yeah.
But it moves different, it walks different, but it's,
I just didn't know if
I
that
don't-
throws off your balance or your hiking or just awareness of ground.
No, I need to pay a little more attention to it, and it's getting better all the time.
Well, that's good.
When I was up in the spring, I really had to think about every step I took climbing a hill.
And
Yeah,
that's
because when you
4
were up in the
months
spring,
after.
you were only
And that-
4 months
yeah, it was
after
only 4
surgery.
months out.
Did your doctor know you were doing that? Like 4 months later, like
Well,
They don't recommend it.
here's what I'm defaulting to. When he put my knee in, one of the questions I asked him, I said, what kind of range of motion can I expect to get out of this? And what can I do to get this thing back in shape as fast as I can? And his response to me was, there was nothing I was going to do that was going to undo what he did.
all right,
And
head
I
to
said,
Alaska.
you're
game
good to
on.
go.
So,
That was
so you
game.
didn't elaborate what that meant to you. Just
He thought you were
Game
gonna go
on.
walking down the street with your wife
Yeah.
in the morning.
we could just walk the dog a few extra times
So,
this week. No, I'm going to go to Alaska.
I was literally 2.5 months after surgery with 100 pounds on my back doing sets of 25 in squats and deep squats. I mean, full-blown legal beyond 90 squats. And the therapist was like losing his mind. And I just kept telling him, Doc said, I can't undo what he did.
Yeah,
Doc
100
said I'm
pound-
good. I'm doing it.
I mean, what's a quarter on a moose? What's that weigh?
$1.25 to $1.50.
So you're basically prepping for that.
Yeah,
essentially,
that was my mindset, and I'm not ever looking to try to be that guy in the gym who's stronger than everybody else ever again.
gym muscles are different than
But-
those muscles, though.
Yeah, but I do, like I said, what I want to do is I want to be able to do lots of repetitions. you
Yeah.
know. And if it's with 100 to 135 pounds on my back,
It's useful.
I
You know
can-
you can carry a moose hind
Right.
quarter and you're good to go.
yep, I don't need to be that guy who can squat 600-700 pounds anymore. Not
Yeah.
necessary. I got nothing to prove.
Yeah, you've been there, done that.
So, so anyway, so we got a moose on the ground. Great, good deal, and we're all happy and stuff. And 2 days later, Clayton takes actually took the dad in, who had wounded a moose earlier, because really wanted to see. Dad was there with his son and son-in-law, is what it was.
Mhm.
So he was kind of. They were having fun. Everybody's having a good time. Like I said, hiking around, climbing mountains, glassing, seeing stuff, glassing. But we really wanted to see Dad get a shot at something. Well, they walked in to that moose kill, hoping to find a bear. Well, lo and behold, they did. And it wasn't having nothing to do with it. And it ended up getting shot at about 20 yards by everybody.
Wow.
Flat out, full on, ears
1,
pinned,
2, 3.
coming. And it was just like everybody went into self-defense mode. And one of the
So
bullets.
20 yards, they
20 yards.
charging essentially.
Oh yeah, it was
Wow.
flat out coming, full stride at 20 yards when one of the bullets hit it right through the lower jaw, and that piled it up.
I tell you what, that's a hell of a story to take back home.
Oh yeah, so they had a great story.
'Cause there's probably his daughter is at home. That was the son-in-law.
They weren't allowed to tell anybody back home what just took place.
That's a secret.
So do we have to blank anything out here on the 17th?
Oh no, everybody knows now. But, so it
Because I can imagine, father, son, son-in-law. There is a daughter at home
right.
that is married to that
There's
guy.
a daughter and a daughter-in-law at home.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. So
They could never know
it all
about
worked
this.
out good. So we got a moose and a bear down. One moose wounded. 3 guys hoping to take home 3 moose and 3 bears. In a 14-day hunt, which is a pretty tall order.
It's a very tall.
But
And,
we're
and they
off to-
probably know that.
Oh, they do. I mean, these guys were great. They were very realistic. They wanted to be able to do this, and and then they understood that what happens if I buy a moose tag and you buy a bear tag, you're going to see moose and I'm going to see bears, and
Yeah.
So they just
Everyone's buying
everybody
everything.
was prepared for whatever was going to happen, and we were off to a good start. Well, from that
Now,
day forward,
I know you can add tags later, but how does that work on the guiding side where if somebody books a moose hunt and then it's like, hey, actually, I'd like to shoot a bear now?
okay. So in Alaska, we are allowed to tag down. So if you have a tag, we'll just say a moose tag,
Okay.
you can put that moose tag on any animal whose tag is equal or lesser value.
Okay.
All right. So that's why the black bear could legally be tagged with a brown bear tag.
Gotcha.
All right. Because a black bear tag's $450.
So it's value of the tag.
Value of the tag is what
Okay.
makes it the difference. You can't combine tags. I can't take a black bear tag and a
Caribou
moose
tag.
and a caribou tag and go shoot a moose. It doesn't work that way. You can only tag.
Start
that.
adding
tags. I bought 17 wolf tags.
Yeah.
Right.
I think I could get a moose with this. Where do I exchange this?
Doesn't work that way.
What
So,
is the highest valued tag?
the brown bear tag?
brown bear tag?
It's $1,000.
So if you get a
Brown
brown
bear's
bear
more
tag,
than moose?
Yes. Yeah.
That
That always
surprises
surprised me too.
Yeah, because the natives they like the moose. They don't really
Correct.
care about the brown
No,
bear.
they want the brown bears all dead. So if you have a brown bear tag, you can shoot a moose, assuming it's in season,
Yeah.
and you can put your brown bear tag on it. Now,
So do you recommend that to most of your clients?
it all depends on what you want to do. I mean, if you were coming up here on a one animal hunt, all right, and you wanted to shoot a moose, but in the back of your brain, you're going,
I'd rather come home with something than
well, not even something. If
a
if
10-foot
you
brown
want to
bear.
just come home with something and you'd shoot any bear, I'd say, well, then just buy the couple tags and do whatever. But if you're that guy that really doesn't want a bear, but if a 9.5, 10 footer steps out, you'll shoot him.
On the last day.
Well, at any point in time. You know,
Yeah.
if something really special steps out, I'd say, well, then buy a brown bear tag, and you can still hunt.
And we'll go moose hunting.
And we'll go moose hunting, and then, and what's going to happen is you're going to kill that animal that wasn't what you booked your hunt for. So you're going to have some kind of preparation with your outfitter as to how that's going to play out, because there's probably going to be a kill fee involved.
Yeah, because moose hunts and brown bear hunts cost a different amount of money.
And now you're going to want to turn around and keep moose hunting.
Yeah, so you got to go into a combo
so now you've become a combo hunter. You got to buy another tag. I mean, so you really just have to sit down and think about why are you coming up here? What are you trying to accomplish? And how much money do you want to spend?
So,
because if you're not ready to spend another $6,000, $8,000, $10,000 in a kill fee for a bear plus $1,000 tag, then by all means just buy your moose tag and go shoot your moose. And if that bear steps out, you're
sorry,
you're SOL.
That's something that only you can figure out for yourself. And then I can give you advice and explain to you what your options are. And I, being an assistant guide, I don't get into somebody else's financial end. So I work for Mike, and whatever contract is between you and him and the financials, quite frankly, I don't need to know what you paid for your hunt, what you paid for kill fees. That's kind of irrelevant to me. I'm here to just help you find the animal.
Gotcha.
I don't want to get mixed up in the financial end of things.
Gotcha.
Because we might have a guy in camp who booked a hunt 3 years ago, and for whatever reason couldn't come, so he paid 3 years ago prices. You booked your hunt last week and paid this year's prices. I don't want to be the guy that's got to sit there and explain
you're paying an extra $5,000.
Why this guy paid a different price than you.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't want anything to do with it.
So
I want to go hunting.
Yeah. What happens if you buy the brown bear tag?
Mm-hmm.
Moose comes out, you shoot it, you put your brown bear tag on.
Tag goes on it.
Did you waste the opportunity to kill a brown bear now because your brown bear tag went on the moose, or could you say, okay, I killed another one? You can buy another brown bear tag.
In our area, we are allowed 2 brown bears a year, so you could buy another brown bear tag. So you could shoot a second brown bear.
Could you shoot a second moose?
What's that?
Could you shoot a second moose with that or no?
You could shoot 1 moose. So you could buy another brown bear tag.
But you can't put that one on a moose.
Yes, you could put that one on a moose also.
You can put 2 on a moose?
No. We put the first brown bear tag, Nick said, went on to a bear.
Oh, okay.
So we bought a second brown bear tag. We're allowed 2 bears in our area. So you're allowed to own a second brown bear tag.
But you can't put 2 bear tags on 1 moose.
No.
Or on 2 moose, I mean.
Yeah,
Correct. No, you can't do that.
Okay. I guess I didn't know that you could kill 2 brown bear. Yeah. I was thinking you could only get 1 brown bear.
In our area. Now, some areas you're allowed 1 brown bear a year. Some you're allowed 1 brown bear every 4 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, everything gets very specific
to where you're at.
So you've got to kind of be careful there. Don't start taking things that I say and applying them to a statewide.
Because I mean, you guys have a 50-inch minimum where you're at.
Correct.
There's other places in Alaska that have no minimum.
Correct.
And I've seen guys that they'll kill like a 40-inch bull and they're like, yeah, this is great and stuff. And I'm thinking, I'm like,
that was illegal.
I'm like, I know that the minimum where they're at is 50. So like, it can't be that big of a bull. but I mean, it's still an impressive bull. I mean, because even an Alaskan, a 40-inch bull up there is still going to beat 90% of the Newfoundland moose that get killed. Yeah. Obviously, it comes at a price,
and spread's really one of the worst things to judge a moose on.
No, because the paddles can change so much,
the shape and the
brow
length
tines and all that stuff.
A lot goes into them, but they had to set. It was just an easy standard.
It's kind of like the 3-up rule we have in PA.
Right.
It's not really because we have a 3-year-old Spike.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got 4-inch bases. What am I supposed?
12 inches tall.
Yeah, legally in PA he's not legal, but I could kill one that's 2 years younger that's got good genes. So it's not. It's like you said, it's not the best, but they gotta draw a line somewhere.
Right. Correct. So we got a pretty good season going. We're 5-6 days in. Things are going pretty good, and it never fails when you're in camp. Everybody's always, what's the other camps here seeing? What are the other camps getting? What are the other camps
Little
getting?
grass is greener feeling.
Right. And we really aren't having a bad season. It hasn't been like booming, but
yeah, you've had some years
but
where
you're
it's
6 days in and
4
you've
out of
already had 3 animals get shot at.
Correct.
2 down. Yeah.
And we've glassed some others that were unobtainable, but they were
You're
in
seeing
our,
them, yeah.
they're in our area. So
You got a shot.
yes. Well, come to find out, we are the only camp out of 5 camps that's having any luck.
So you are the camp to be at.
We had turned out to be the camp.
The grass was
Now,
very
we weren't
brown
here-
on the
we
other
weren't
side.
hearing stuff all the time. You know, it was really quiet for us. But the couple times we did hear something, we were able to lay eyes on it, see stuff, make a move, and stuff happened. Nobody else was having that. It was dead silent everywhere else. One other camp shot a 56-inch bull that they basically spot and stalked. They were out on a lake, and they were in a spot where they could glass. They were seeing a couple other animals, but it was dead silent for them too. So the other camps aren't having quite as nice a hunt as Clayton and I are having at this.
So does your camp start getting a little full, or
So no, it's not set up that way. You know, you can't
How
just
far
start
are camps apart?
30 miles apart.
So it's not like you're going to bump into another hunter.
No, you could. I mean, but we do that on purpose so
Yeah.
that you're not hunting on top.
you
of
pay
each
that
other.
kind of money to go hunting? You don't want to be
we
bumping into
deliberately are
people.
trying to spread people out, you know, as much as we possibly
And
can.
are outfitters pretty cordial with each other? Like, hey, this is kind of where we're trying to set up. I'd appreciate if.
Some of them. Some are better at it than others. And the long and the short of it is the way the laws are in Alaska. I can set a camp up, and you can come down and set a camp up right next to me. If it's on state land, there's no exclusive rights areas there. They can camp right next to you. Literally. Want a coffee?
We're having breakfast together.
Breakfast together. Yeah, you want a coffee? They can legally do that.
You got extra coffee in your coffee
We're
maker?
running a little low over here.
So it's unfortunate that's the way, but and I've never had anybody do that to me, but you know, over the years I have had guys on top of us
Encroach
and-
a little bit
yes,
more than you'd like them to.
Yes, and I've had some grumpy pusses, and you know,
Now,
mad-
when you set up camp, like, how far from camp will you like to travel? Upriver or downriver?
ideally, I like to try to from a camp. I like to be within about 6 river miles, and the reason for that is I can usually cover that in my boat in about 20 minutes. Okay. And that lets me hunt that most crucial hours, morning and night.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to
As
navigate the
efficiently as
river when it's
possible.
dark.
Right.
If I got to travel an hour to get someplace, I just wasted the best hour of hunting running my boat, making a bunch of noise. And vice versa, in the evening, to safely get you back to camp, I've got to surrender the last hour of the day that I don't want to surrender. So what I will typically do, and I have a little safety meeting with all the clients when they come into camp, and I explain what we're going to do, and I am fully capable of running the river in the middle of the night. Don't care to do it. It's too dangerous. If we have to, I will, but only if we have to.
And you don't want us to have to.
And I don't want, right. No,
Yeah,
you
that's
don't.
an emergency
Yeah,
situation.
that's
That's,
somebody
not
needs-
for
yeah.
fun.
So if we're out hunting and I'm looking at my watch, I'm watching the sun's going down, it's getting dark, and we've got nothing happening. I mean, there's not a peep being made. We're going to bug out. We're going to get back to camp safely, because that's more important than standing here and calling that moose in when it's too dark to see him and judge him and say that's a legal bull. And now all we did was give him a snoot full of us, and we had to walk away from him anyways.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
If you know he's coming and he's fired up, and I'm going, we got 10 minutes of daylight left, and he's going to be another 10 minutes getting here, I'll stick it out for the chance to kill him, and then it might be a slow, miserable ride back to camp in the dark.
But you've got a moose on the ground.
We
so
got
it's
a
like,
moose on the ground, so you know we'll do what it has to be done. But I do my best to not run the river at night. And like I said, I've made plenty of trips in the dark, pitch black. Just try not to do it when I don't have to.
that makes sense.
So as we're finding out how quiet everybody else is having, how miserable it is, it was kind of a morale boost to our camp, who was having a lot of quiet hunts.
Yeah.
nothing was happening.
But they're like,
Yeah, they've been
But-
getting the
But
morale
at the
boost
same
of
time-
animals
right? But they're going
every couple
wow,
days.
we're having some slow hunts here, and not hearing, seeing as much as we were hoping to, but we're head and shoulders ahead of everybody else.
yeah, we've got 2 animals on the ground.
Yeah, but still, you're only 6-7 days into the hunt, and they've already got 3 successful hunts. Like,
Correct.
that's pretty freaking good odds.
Yeah,
We get like
we're
2
doing-
successful hunts in 4
Yes.
months of hunting up here.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
say
so-
you hunt a morning and an evening
Right.
hunt for 7 days. That's 14 hunts, and you got 3 animals.
Yes.
Like that, those are pretty freaking good odds.
Yeah. So no, we were definitely doing okay.
Yeah.
So after they had their bear, we ran into about a 4-day lull where nobody was hearing nothing. And we were kind of like back to what everybody else had.
Yeah.
And I went upriver with one of the guys, and we got out. And I typically, when I get out of the boat, I'll park someplace. We'll sit quiet for 10 minutes, 15 minutes before we even move in at all, just to let that boat noise settle down. And we moved in about 100 yards off the river, try to just cancel out some of that water noise. Started making some calls, and the next thing you know, we could hear commotion out in the river. Never heard a moose calling, but we could hear a bunch of commotion in the river. So we really quick peeked our, snuck our way back out to the edge of the river. We had a nice quiet little path we could follow. And here, there's a bear fishing out in the river. And he kind of come down, worked his way right down to us, and got into some current and panicked and swam himself right to shore,
Right at ya.
right in front of us, right between this little 5-yard gap in the willows, and stepped onto the only clear gravel bar
He's
around
just like, shoot me.
40 yards away from us.
Wow.
And he steps up and he's like looking right at us and looking at the client. I'm like, he's right there, man. Get rid, just when he gives you the chance, take him. And the bear kind of gets there and he just gets himself up out of the water and he's kind of looking around. And the guy shoots and the bear rears back and boom, down into the bushes he goes. And I'm like, pretty sure you just hit him. The way he reacted, he kind of like got flung back.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we went down there and looked, and I found a spot where he hit the gravel right alongside the bear. He missed it clean. And
So you saw where his impact of the bullet was.
yeah, well, we couldn't find it that night because it was getting towards the end of the evening.
Yeah.
And so we had to come back the next day to look for him. And upon closer inspection of everything, I could see where the bullet made an impact in some gravel. And we followed his track, and I
No
found
blood
it.
or nothing.
And there, so that case, he's
You can hunt.
Fortunately, it's cleanness.
I felt pretty confident that disturbance I saw wasn't his foot. It looked to me like it was probably a bullet impact. I don't have any blood, even though the bear acted like he got hit. I think he just got
Scared.
spooked, and
Reared
reared back.
back, yeah.
So he's free to keep his tag and keep hunting.
So that's a discretion call on your part when it comes to that?
Yeah. I'm not going to pull your tag if I'm not 100% sure you wounded an animal.
Yeah,
I'm
blood,
going to
obvious.
give you the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, blood is obvious. Like
That's-
you made contact with that animal.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So, because it's not most of Alaska doesn't carry that law. There's parts of it that does, but most of it doesn't. You're allowed to just go out there and wound 9 animals. We don't think that's right.
No.
Yeah, that comes to more of a morality thing.
Correct. And it kind of came full circle for us a few years back when we had a guy that came up and wounded 2 moose and a bear.
Yeah,
And
I remember that.
Yes, you were there that year.
Yeah,
He was
I
just-
stood face to face with one of the bears that he wounded. So.
Right. So that kind of like
After that, you're like,
was
okay.
we can't have guys just coming up here thinking they're going to just fling lead and hope something good happens out of it. You need to come up prepared to do what you're supposed to do. So anyways, now we're really 4 solid opportunities.
Yeah.
4 times triggers have been pulled, and but we're down to one last day of moose hunting.
Mm-hmm.
And it had been really super quiet. Well, we get back to camp, and Clayton was with one of the other clients, and they were kind of still watching that moose carcass to see if another bear would come back down to it.
Mm-hmm.
And while they were down there, Clayton said, "Hey, there was another bull grunting back to the north. Just at the limits of me being able to hear him, but I could hear him grunting and raking. And he's like, you might want to go after him. So on the last day of moose season, I went in there with the client, and it was about a 3/4 of a mile walk or better to where we really wanted to get to where we thought we were going to be in the hunt, But in my mind, I don't care if we got to walk a mile to get this thing going, and then another little bit. It's the last day of moose season.
You want a moose or not?
Yeah, you want a moose, we'll get them out. Once we get them on the ground, we'll get them out of here. It's not going to be fun, but we'll get it done. So we go up in there, and we'd walk a little bit and call, walk and call, and listen, walk and call. And I finally get to where I really wanted to be. And we were really expecting the moose to be down in the river bottom, because we had nothing but burn for 3 miles off the other side of us. And albeit we'd seen a lot of moose sign in the burn, it was just that travel sign. They were moving and stuff, and they weren't like they were just laying out there in the sun, And sitting there calling a little bit, and I got my back to the burn. I'm kind of really focused hard down into the river bottom. And all of a sudden I hear, whoa. And then, I mean, way off into as far away as I could hear it, and I just spun my head around because I knew it was dead behind me. And clients looked at me like, what are you doing? I'm like, he's way out there. And lo and behold, when I pulled my maps up, there was a little ribbon of creek way out there, about a mile from us.
You're like, he's probably...
That had some green to it, and he was probably out there. And finally it came in, listening to us call our way up, and finally got close enough coming to us that I heard him. Well, we're down to about an hour of daylight left, and he's
coming, but
he's out there. And I made a few more calls, and he got a little louder and a little louder, and now the clients are hearing him. And I'm just like watching my watch going, holy cow, he's got a lot of ground to cover. So I said, come on, we're gonna try to help.
Yeah, I mean, you got nothing to lose. You're
so
on the
now
last
we're going
day.
across this big burned tundra area where there's very little cover. You can always see 75 yards plain as day, and usually closer to 100, And I'm trying to there's a good bushy spot there. We can walk to that, and then the next one and the next one. And we're trying to close the ground up. When we close up a couple 100 yards on him, going in his direction, and he's always coming closer. And we get behind this one little stick, there wasn't much for the three of us to hide behind. And I'm looking and listening, and all of a sudden one client goes, he's right over there. Well, here he was trying to circle us, and he was out,
probably downwindy or something.
He was. We had the wind in our favor. Everything was really set up good, other than we didn't have all the cover we wanted. And he was trying to get around us with a client. He goes, I'd seen him back at the other bush, and I didn't recognize him. He thought he was looking at a birch tree, white birch, because this moose had just cleaned up and was bright white paddled. Wow. And he was a stud. I mean, a stud. And as he started to move around, I kind of turned and looked. I'm like, holy Christ, that is him. And he's like, looks at me and goes, oh, he's legal. Just put a bullet in him as soon as you can. And he was kind of moving, and I made a couple of calls, just raking is all I was doing, because that's what he liked. He didn't like cow calling. He didn't like grunting. He wanted to hear me rake.
He was pissed.
That's all he wanted to hear was rake. And he wasn't pissed, but he was steady coming. He wanted to investigate. And he kind of moved around, and then he started to come at us. And
How far was he at this point?
80 yards,
Okay.
85 yards. And when he turned and them two big white paddles showed up, it was just like, wow.
That's a hell of a
and
moose.
I'm talking to the guy that's supposed to be doing the shooting. I'm like, he's right there. Just dump him, get a bullet in him. And Tony's whispering back, I can take him. I'm like, you already shot a moose. You can't shoot nothing. So we're watching, and I got my scope on. I got my scope right on his cross eyes, and the other guy's he's struggling to find this bull in his scope. And I don't know if he had the scope turned up too high or what he was doing, but I could just see the barrel doing
He's
circles,
searching.
and I guess I need to start having this conversation with people before hunting starts, because this isn't the first time I've seen this happen. People are struggling to find the animal in their scope. And in the end, this moose looks at us for about a minute and then turns and goes. He finally figures out that
So he's
You're not a
standing there
moose.
80
he's
yards.
standing there 80 yards, 75, 80
Oh,
yards
my
from us at
goodness.
this point with like 2 little sticks in front of him. We got
He's
4
plain
sticks in
as
front
day.
of us. And the guy just couldn't find it. And then when it turned and walked, he's like, I got him. And he finally got the scope up on him. Well, then he stepped into a thicket where he didn't have a shot, and he went through about 30 yards of that, then hit and broke into another wide open spot. And I had moved around the bush, and I'm following him the whole time.
You're like, just pull the
That's
trigger
all I
and
wanted.
I'm going to
Just-
give you one.
All I need to hear is that gun go off and see a flicker of hair, and I'm
So you
dumping
can
him.
then, yeah.
because then I can help, but I can't help until you hit it.
Yeah.
You know? And he never got it back in its sights, and it's left. And now we're down to about 20 minutes
That's
of
such
daylight
a
left.
heartbreak.
And I mean, all 3 of us are looking at each other like
That was
Wow.
it. Like,
that was our chance. And I'm the guy that hates to say it was a 70-inch bull, because that's so hard of a number to hit.
mm-hmm.
But this bull was.
If you were
probably-
going to say it,
He was 69 and 15 16s.
This bull was probably going to be a 70-inch bull. I mean, and it was you talk about heartbreaking, because we had hunted so hard
Mm-hmm.
and so long, and finally got the animal we wanted right in
The
front.
perfect
I mean,
situation.
And
that's the epitome of a moose at that point. I mean,
Oh,
to break 70 that's got to be.
yeah.
Is that comparable to like your 200-inch whitetail?
Yes.
Okay,
Oh, absolutely.
like I that's what I kind of thought. That like that
Yes.
70-inch
Yeah.
mark. That is like the
they're
coveted
very, very
200-inch.
And you
very,
get,
very.
like, I've seen Boone and Crockett bulls that were not, I
Yeah,
haven't
63,
seen.
65.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
haven't seen.
That's what I
a
mean. Like, you know,
70-inch
Boone and
bull.
Crockett's what, 170, 180.
170.
Like,
Yeah.
So you put another, like, that's your 63 to 70 jump. That's the 170 to 200 jump.
Yes,
Like, it's
exactly.
just a
So-
totally different animal.
But yeah, so you want to talk about taking the wind out of our sails? It was crushing, just
Yeah.
crushing. So now we're, I said, well, we'll call our way back, and maybe we'll get lucky. But
That was
but
it.
I'll be honest, with you, it was a pretty half-hearted calling our way back. I mean, we were all pretty low at that
Tails
point.
were tucked, and
And I'm trying to pause and call, and
They're
listen.
just
they
like,
probably
well,
at that point
and
were
even
just,
me,
yeah.
the wind was out of my sails, and that rarely happens. Because I'm pretty
Well, you
good. At,
as a
I'm pretty
guide
good at
wanted
pushing
that.
things right to the last minute, because
Yeah.
I've had too many hunts
Come
that
down
happened
to.
in literally that last minute of daylight. I've killed bears, I've killed moose. That was that last possible minute
Yeah,
that
it
you
was
could have taken.
silent
And
until.
some of them are on the very last day of the hunt and everything. And just I'm pretty good at keeping.
It's happened. It could do it again. Yeah.
Right. It's happened not once, and it's happened repeatedly for me. So I'm the last guy to let the wind go out of his sails,
Yeah.
and it was out of mine.
It got to you that day.
Yeah, that one, because I was like, here it is. We got the last day, last minute. We're winding down, and we're gonna do it again.
Yeah.
And
Didn't happen.
man, it's like, wow, just
Yeah.
wow, And we hunted, so now moose season's done. We still got a couple days to bear hunt, and we did. And we actually, the clients on the last day that we could still bear hunt, they were like, you know what, guys, we've had a great trip. We're happy. Let's go spend the last night down at the fish lodge and just get cleaned up and ready to go. They were ready. They were good at calling. They shortened their hunt by a day, and we didn't see any bears the last few days that we did hunt. And,
But they still had a good time and were
they had a good
satisfied.
time. They recognized that they had more opportunities than anybody else, and I
And
mean,
messed
they were,
up a few opportunities. And
but it was all really good. So it was a nice way to end the season. Like I said, things stayed quiet for everybody else. It was
you
Just a
guys were
really
just
slow
in the
year.
hot spot.
we were in the right spot. We drew the lucky straw this year and
Mm-hmm.
made the most of what we had. And but look forward to getting back up there and putting a permanent camp up there. We just kind of spiked up there this year.
Feeling it out.
Yeah, and
Definitely a spot you want
I'd
to
say
get
on a
back
slow
to.
year and you have that opportunity.
yeah,
So
I'm going to go back up there and we're going to put a permanent camp up there. And,
now, is
and
Mike pretty
enjoy
good about like trusting you? Like, hey, this is a spot we need a camp.
it.
And
Oh yeah.
I figured. I just
we've gotten to know each other pretty good, and we got a great relationship, and I really like him, and I think he feels the same way. And there's a real tight group of us, 3 or 4, that really are the core of everything. And it's kind of like if we say something,
he trusts
it
that that's
doesn't
what
really
he's-
get
It's not a
questioned.
conversation.
Yeah.
It's just like, okay, how do we get it to happen?
What do we got to do to make this happen? Is this feasible? And we don't just like spit out ideas that are unrealistic ideas either.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's like, boy, it'd be really cool to be able to do this, but it's going to cost way too much money and too much time, and you're going to invest way too much.
Yeah.
It just, in the end, it doesn't make sense. It might be cool, but we don't have bottomless pockets.
Yeah.
So, we understand that too. So, but I'm looking forward to getting a permanent camp up to this place. And then I think I showed you guys. You guys got the picture of that bull.
Yeah, running down
The
the
video,
river.
yeah.
Running
You
down the
posted
river.
that on our Instagram.
That was the 2
That's a
days.
giant bull,
2 days
too.
after the season closed.
Yeah,
We were bear hunting, and that's
giant bulls running
yeah.
around.
And that bull was not the biggest bull we saw that year. This fall.
Yeah,
Yeah, and that was a giant.
I
That
talked
was
to
a
Brad on
giant.
that one, and he said that was a massive bull.
Yeah.
Because I think Brad was in the boat.
Yeah. Sean, Clayton, who all was in the boat?
I thought Brad said he was
No,
in it.
Brad wasn't there.
No.
Not for that one. Brad was in.
This
the boat.
was at Kegs and Eggs, though. So
Brad was a little tuned in.
well,
on that.
I was too. I could have heard or misheard it. Yeah, I wasn't giving Brad a shot there. I was.
Yeah, and it was
me.
really weird because if you look at that bull, that bull was seen on like the 17th, and that bull still has velvet hanging.
Yeah,
off it,
he's yeah.
Wow.
which those bulls have usually lost their velvet at the latest September 3rd or 4th.
Yeah, I've only ever seen one bull still in velvet during the season, and it was like the 5th or 6th.
Yeah, and it was probably a little bull.
Yeah, exactly. It was
Yeah.
one a native shot,
Yeah,
and it was I think a 40-inch bull.
yeah. So it was just a really weird year. Everything was late. The moose. I'll tell you how slow the moose hunting was. They did something that I've never heard of them do before. They, by emergency order, Fish and Game extended moose season by 5 days.
For natives or for
just
non-residents?
for the no, just the residents.
Well, that
Because
doesn't do any
they-
good because they
were-
don't care about the season anyway.
Well, some of them do. No, but the point was they weren't getting moose
The quota.
for their freezers for the winter.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So and like I said, they extended it 5 days, and I've never heard of that up
Yeah,
there.
you've been up there 24
25
years, and
yeah.
they've
and
never
I'm not saying
extended.
they haven't ever done it someplace, but I've never heard it, especially down in our area.
Yeah.
So yeah, obviously
It was
nobody was
yeah,
shooting moose.
The moose were they stayed out in their summer ranges later than usual and were late coming down to the river. Now we saw as we were cleaning up camps, we finally got out about the 23rd. Finally had camps all put away and stuff like that. We had seen several bulls in the last few days that were starting to show up in the river. I mean, so it wasn't like the animals weren't there. They just weren't
rutting.
and in that river corridor that we have huntable access to.
So it seemed like everything about their cycle, the velvet coming off, the rut starting, was just a week.
2 weeks. It was
yeah.
really closer to 2 weeks late.
Yeah.
10 days anyways.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so it was as poor a year as it was for our area.
You
had a good year.
Clayton and I, we had a good year.
You guys felt like you really knew what you were doing.
Yeah, we were the guys that everybody wished they were
Hunting with.
hunting with that year. It was just, and it was literally we drew the lucky straw.
Yeah. Yeah, because you could end up at any camp.
Right. Yeah. But usually if there's something new getting punched in someplace,
You're part of it.
I'm part of it.
Here, Franco,
Everyone
check out
trusts
that new
Frank
spot.
to go drive that trail.
Like these camps have been working for years, so we're going to send you up there.
Yeah, you're going to go over here and there might not
Try to
be,
explain
there
to
might
your
not be any
client,
water
yeah.
in the river over there, so
Yeah. Everyone else will be miserable over there, so we'll send Frank.
but but I like doing that kind of stuff. To me,
Yeah.
there's nothing more fun than seeing
Yeah.
new country, finding something new, figuring it out. And we've obviously you don't figure everything out in 1 year, but we Clayton and I
Got a
put
decent
together
grasp.
some pretty good
Yeah.
start on things, and if we can get up there again next year,
If in a slow year you can have a year like that, I think it's probably worth trying it out again.
Yeah.
that was our logic. So no, I'm definitely looking forward to getting back up there and spending some time in there again.
Very cool.
Starting to get old. I only got so many more years of this in me.
Yeah, well, you got a new knee though, so that's
Yeah, that
Well,
adds a few years.
That's the way I looked at it. That one.
no.
It took 35 years for that last one to go to hell. This one here,
Yeah. This one's not going to go bad until you're dead.
right?
Does hunting pressure affect your camps at all? Do you it's just weird that you've got these camps that have worked so well and everybody had a slow year, but then you venture off into the spot that you haven't hunted and it's probably far enough to where not a ton of natives are probably in that area. Do you think being in a totally new area with no pressure has anything to do with the season?
My knee-jerk reaction is I want to say yes, because we didn't have other people hunting. At the same time, this is the same camp that I told you we had 5, 6, 7 rafters coming by every day. Fishing.
Okay.
Same camp.
And I know when I was up there, I haven't been up there in a couple of years, but I know another outfitter worked up in that area when I was up there.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's
So
why
it's
we
not
were
like
never
it's
up there.
Yeah, it's not like it's pristine. There's other people there, and like I said, there's fishing clients that come down through. So that it was kind of nice. And we did have, there was one local that was coming up and hunting up through there close to us, and he was actually really good. I would hear his boat come up river, and as soon as he would see one of our boats, he would stop there and hunt his way back down.
That's really nice of him.
Yeah, he never came by and like
What you seeing up
tried
here?
Well, I wouldn't care if you did
Yeah.
that. When I'm in camp, everybody's welcome in my camp. You stop by my camp, I'm going to give you a sandwich and a coffee and make for eating dinner. You're welcome to dinner. I don't turn anybody away. It's to me, I want to meet people and have fun and be cordial. But some of the guys, every now and then you run into that guy. He's just going to come up and hunt on top of you, and it's frustrating.
Yeah, he's like, oh, an outfitter's here. They must have something going.
Yeah, but this guy was the local, also from Ekwok, where we hunt out of. And, and he had hunted up there, most of his life. And in a way, he wasn't happy that we were up there, but we tried to go far enough up that we weren't on top of him either.
Yeah.
So, and when
Trying
he
to
would
respect each other's distance.
So when he would come up, he'd see our boat, and I mean, he easily could have blown by it and hunted on top of us, and would have been within his rights. But he showed some courtesy, and I appreciate that. And he ended up shooting a 64-inch bull.
Nice.
Literally, I mean, right below us.
Really?
It wouldn't surprise me if it wasn't one we'd talked to early in the season.
Yeah.
And whatever, but that's good. I'm glad. I'm happy for everybody who kills an animal. I'm never that guy that gets jealous because you got something and I didn't. I can't do that.
Yeah.
If you get out there and you hunt hard, and you do everything right, you will get your turn at being on top.
Yeah. And it's tough to be upset, especially a guy like that is being respectful to you at the same time.
Correct. And he's truly hunting for the meat. For him and his wife for the winter. Yeah. So how am I supposed to feel bad that he came up and shot a moose?
Yeah.
I'm happy for you.
Yeah.
I'll take the pictures of the moose for you. But you see people out there in the hunting world sometimes that if they can't be the guy that shot the big buck or the big bear, they're just mad at everybody else who did. And I just don't believe in that. I mean, you do everything right and you hunt hard, you'll get your turn on the podium. And don't feel like you have to be the guy on the podium
every time.
Be happy for somebody else that had some success. Because you'll find that other people will be happier for you and your success when you're happy for theirs. When you're the bitter guy all the time,
people are going to be pretty irritated
people will
when
be
you
kind
kill
of bitter
something.
when you kill something too. So be happy for other people's success stories, and you'll have yours probably more often then.
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
But that's my year.
Heck yeah.
Now we're going to try to shoot some whitetails around the house.
We're gonna really try. It's been kind of a weird year, just like super warm, and then as soon as it started to get cold, it's just been rain.
Yeah, we've had a lot of rain.
It's just an odd year. But I think it's getting ready to turn. Like it's supposed to rain tomorrow morning, but I think if it breaks,
Well,
that's going to be the time to be
I
there.
tried to sneak out last night. I got a couple minutes of free time, and I needed to be out 10 minutes earlier than what I was because I walked right into a bunch of them.
Oh.
20 yards from the stand I was going to hunt.
Been there.
Yeah.
We've all been there.
I'm literally walking to it, and I kind of peek up the hill there, and I see the stand. It's about, I don't know, 50, 60 yards from me, and about the time I saw the stand,
See all
I
the
noticed all
whitetails.
these little heads looking at me.
You ever notice that you see them as soon as you stop?
Yeah.
Like you could be walking and nothing
You're
kicks
scanning
up.
the whole
Yeah, you're
time.
scanning the whole time you're walking. Nothing's blowing out. You're not seeing any tails. You stop and look, and you're like, "Shit, there's a deer," and then it takes off. It's like,
You need to stop more often.
yeah, apparently, because it seems
Yeah.
like every time I see a deer take off, it's right after I stop and go to move again.
A lot of times, like I've noticed that a lot, like hunting in goldenrod fields. If you walk by them, they'll let you walk by.
Oh, yeah.
They don't care that you're there. As soon as you stop, they're like, "Oh shit, they see me." Even if you don't,
Yeah.
they view that as that's now a threat because it's
Yeah.
not just moving by.
Yeah.
Huh.
No, you do. You need to stop more often. You know, but we tend to, when we're walking to our tree stand,
I want to get there. Yeah.
I just want to get there, get in my tree
I
stand.
said that in a previous podcast that like when I'm slow hunting, like just picking my way through the woods, I don't put a destination in my mind. I just walk, and like even if you're like, I just want to get 20 yards up there to that spot, you're gonna walk to it and not hunt to it. You need to hunt your way through every
spot.
step you take.
Yeah. Well, it's no different. A couple years ago, you scolded me, and rightfully so. I was walking to my tree stand instead of hunting to my tree stand. And as I'm taking a couple of steps, I look, and right off my left shoulder, there's a 125-inch whitetail, 20 yards from me, head down, no clue that I was there. I didn't have the release on my bow yet.
Yeah.
You know,
I was like, why would you ever leave your truck
the
without
release
your...
is still attached to the riser of the bow.
Oh.
You know, all the arrows are in the quiver, and I'm just going to my tree stand. And, you know, and
Yeah, you're not going
act
to peel
of
that
trying
Velcro
to-
off.
to get down and hide a little bit and get it all done. That was done. You know, I mean, I
Yeah.
blew it, and I told him, he's like, "Well, you're an idiot. You know,
Yeah.
you know better than to do that. You broke
Yeah.
every rule you ever taught me to do." You know? Yeah, you got me on that one. I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah.
It's just one of them deals like you could walk to your tree stand 100 times, and
The one time you're not ready.
yeah, that's going to be the time where you could have shot a buck
Yeah.
on your way.
Yeah, yeah. So you do. You need to stop more often. You need to pay more attention.
Definitely try to get the destination out of your mind and
Yes.
work your way there.
Yep.
Good.
So who's killing the next deer?
I think I will.
You
Probably
have-
tomorrow morning.
You're going to do it?
Yeah.
Well, there you have it.
All right.
It's set in stone. We've done it. We
Tom,
figured it out.
Tommy's next.
All right.
All right.
Well, thank you, Uncle Frank, for joining
Hey,
us again.
thanks for having me.
Everybody always really enjoys the Alaska episode.
Yeah, I've
so-
had a couple people text me and request. Actually, a previous client has been texting me. I've stayed in
Where's
touch
the
with him
stories?
for a few years, and he
Yeah.
was like, "Hey, I've been kind of waiting on this episode. What's going on here?" So I was like, "Don't worry, we'll get it. We'll get it real soon."
Well, here
So,
you go.
Here it is. I hope you find it interesting. You know, it was.
I always do.
It was fun living it, so I hope you guys can.
I had a
enjoy
good
hearing
time
about it.
recording it.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
You didn't record nothing. You just talked.
Well, I was in the recording studio.
Hey, he bought Johnny Walker.
Yeah, that's true. He does have Johnny Walker on
I
the
mean,
table.
that's a big
There's
plus.
actually more beer cans and whiskey on this table than there has been in a long time.
Yeah.
Well, it's about time you got that straightened out.
Well, it's because we're podcasting on a Friday night, which
Yeah,
we
it's
haven't brought
usually
up.
during the week.
It's a Wednesday and everybody goes to work in the morning. So doing this Friday night deal could get interesting.
Yeah. Might have to make a habit out of it.
Yeah. Well, thanks again. I think we're going to close it out there. Good luck to everybody listening that's, hunting, and you're not going to kill them if you don't get outside.